Hello everybody and welcome back to my Creepypasta story. Let's try our best to get into it. If you guys are interested in this, please check out my Wattpad page at Taz1995, A Crystal in the Ruff, and let's get into it. Chapter 14. It was odd for Crystal to pretend to go about her life as though nothing had happened at all, as though things were not so different, as though her life was not upside down and falling fast. Crystal had been over the situation in her head. Crystal had been over the situation in her head for weeks now, since she and Zach had really told her about everything. No matter how much she tried to assure herself that everything would be okay, she just couldn't keep her head from spinning over the situation. How did things happen so quickly, so fast? Why her? Why did this have to happen? Did this have to happen? Did she really want it to? Crystal did have feelings for Zach, and she couldn't really put her finger on when or how, but somewhere along the lines, despite all his scaring her, being pushy, she found herself falling for his goofier side, his unexpected kindness. He didn't show it easily, but Crystal could tell he had a good heart, and even when he had been trying to be mean and scare her into doing things, she had now become better at reading him, and that she now knew that he had never meant any real harm to her. Zach was a gentleman, and didn't believe in playing with his food. If you were someone he wanted dead or hurt, he didn't play with you for very long. He would get right to the work and get it done quickly, so you didn't feel any pain. He wouldn't just threaten you and play with you endlessly, because what would be the real point of that? If Zach truly wanted Crystal dead, then or tortured, he would have done it and wouldn't have even spoken to Crystal at all. A thought that made Crystal swallow hard at first, but after Zach confessing that he liked her from almost the very beginning, it made a whole lot more sense now. And now the thought was somewhat comforting. But the thought still stood. Could her and Zach really be a couple? How could this work? And was this even something she really wanted? Did she like Zach? Yes. Did she want to be in a relationship with Zach? Well, yes. Did he like her back? Yes. Did she mind he was being a proxy for Slenderman? Well, she still wasn't sure about that one. But what was there really to say about something like that? Did it bother her that Zach was a proxy meant that they wouldn't be able to really see each other all the time despite being a couple? Well, yes. Crystal wasn't going to lie to herself about that. But don't even normal couples have jobs that could take them away from each other for months at a time? Don't these relationships still work out? Would it be so bad? And let's not forget the elephant in the room. Here, for one thing, Zach's whole family was a giant group of supernatural serial killers and monsters, some of which were the worst kind, not to mention he worked for the great Slenderman himself. The stories that Crystal had heard about the Slenderman from the time she was a small child, enough to scare her to almost never even go into the woods at all. Now she was a target for him if her and Zach didn't at least pretend to be girlfriend and boyfriend. I mean, to think that she could lose her life just for not being forced to be somebody's assistant, and then being told it was forbidden to do so in the first place. Now she was in a relationship just to save both of their lives. Zach had definitely some way of telling a girl he liked them. Definitely had some ways of telling girls that he liked them. Crystal couldn't help but think sarcastically to herself. I mean, the fact that they both really liked each other, kind of liked each other, aside, this was strange and messed up. And then there was what happened in the park with that man with the crazy eyes and smile. Would that happen again? Would more of Zach's family come see her, and could she handle it? Would she live through it? Were they nice at all? Were they nice at all? As weeks had gone by and Crystal had been trying to get on with her life, she hadn't been sure, but out of the corner of her eye, she could have swore that she kept seeing things. Not to mention there were times she would be eating her lunch at school or walking home, or from far away there would be a person that would seem to be staring at her for longer than necessary than seemed. She couldn't say anything for sure, but it did really freak her out. Even though she tried to tell herself it was nothing, she couldn't help but feel worried about it. What if it was Zach's family? What if they were checking in on her or checking her out? What would she do if she ran into one? Zach had been gone a while again now at least 5 days now, and even though he was always went away for long periods of time, and then would come back randomly for long or short periods of time, depending on what kind of work he was doing, it felt different now. more lonely now, more frightening. Once again, Crystal found herself complaining whether or not her go with the flow and don't ask questions route was really the way to go in a situation like such as this. Is this what Zach was talking about when he said that she was a good girl? Is this where being a good girl leads you? What if she wasn't a good girl? Would she really even be in this situation right now? But again, Crystal asked herself, what good does that do to me? Is being bad really going to help her get out of the situation any less? No, of course not. As much as Crystal kept going back to the question, she just knew that to survive a situation like this, being a good girl in some form or another was the best policy of getting out of this alive. Crystal would just have to work out with this on her own, and she was lucky to have Zach to help her when she had him. And when she didn't, she was just going to have to find some way of standing on her own somehow. Okay, let me check out the next part and make sure it's not too long. Let's see if we can read it. Oh, it's not too long, but, well, it's a little long. Okay, let me hurry up. This real quick. Okay, chapter 15. The picture above doesn't belong to me. It belongs to its rightful owner, so just FYI. It had been almost a month and a half now since Crystal and Zach had been forced into their new roles as couple. Despite that, they had seamlessly managed to come to terms with the situation, and even found it more relaxing than they thought they would be. Now that the family knew, Zach didn't really have to worry about not getting caught or being gone for too long as much as anymore. He still had to report back, and now he was said to have Crystal as a girlfriend, he wasn't expected to be on time quite as casual as he was before. Now that Crystal was said to be Zach's girlfriend, most of the pastas had to steer clear of her house now, so Crystal was a little bit more safe. Not entirely, but still. Crystal was still being taught and shown things by Zach. It was just not as pushed for her to be perfect or memorize everything now. It was a great way for them to spend time together. Going through his work, taking Crystal through what he was doing and how he did it, Crystal could actually tell he was really enjoying his work, as screwed up as it was. And he did really like showing what he knew to Crystal. There was a sense that he enjoyed sharing what he knew and could do it with somebody at least really meant something to him. Crystal was glad it could be her. She wasn't as warm and fuzzy over everything that Zach was doing, but she knew it was a part of him, and now, in some ways, it was a part of her, and that she was going to have to get used to it now. The only real assurance that she had was that she was never required to kill, maim, torture anyone, herself, if anything, unless you were Stoker herself. It was frowned upon, which was a comfort to Crystal. Crystal didn't want to participate in anything like what Zach's family did. Crystal had mentioned to Zach about the stuff she thought she might have seen out of the corner of her eye, though Zach didn't seem to want to tell her. Zach confessed that his family would be interested in her and probably would want to check her out, if only to see who it was that had finally caught his attention. But that if she saw anybody, to be respectful, but to stay as far away as she could. Crystal was a little scared once Zach had confirmed her fears. Didn't tell Zach that. What good would it have done? But heeded his advice and nodded politely. She tried to continue walking the dogs too, but it was not as easy as before. She couldn't feel as safe after what happened before, and the dogs would act out more now too. And Crystal knew why that was, and it didn't make her feel any better. Okay. That was chapter 14 and chapter 15. And the next one, I think it's that one. I think in the next one, these guys are going to show up in the next one. So if you guys really like the proxies and everything and all, so stay tuned to the next one, and I'll see you in the next one. So, sorry that this one wrapped up a little too soon. But anyway, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you in the next chapter. Hope you guys are enjoying this. And if you really like it, please check out Wattpad at Taz. Please check out Wattpad on my page, Taz1995, and read the whole story for yourself. The story is not finished. I just want to say that the story is not finished, but it is on the way to being finished. And that's why I'm going through all these chapters. That way, by the time I release the other two and finish up this story and go on to the next one, it'll all be caught up, so that everybody will be caught up. So don't worry about that. But just know that the story is not finished. There's a couple chapters going to be done, but it will be complete. It will be getting completed very soon. Anyway, hope you guys enjoy. Thank you.